Sustainable Resilience with David Dodd.
One of the things that appealed to me about doing an interview with you, Caitlin, was the fact that you had seen the phenomenon that was Hurricane Katrina and everything that happened after that from several different perspectives. Mm-hmm. We had mentioned you were with the Small Business Administration. Before that, you were the Director of Economic Development for the Regional Planning Commission, which is a planning and development organization. Give me a little insight from your perspective, from these different angles, about what happened to New Orleans, what changed, how is New Orleans both different than it was in 2005, but also the same as it was in 2005, and how those two juxtapose each other in the place we're sitting today.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a crazy time, but an incredibly rewarding and very rich experience also. I think one of the hallmarks of the Katrina era that really kind of gave strength and gave a lot of organizations voice was the amount of capacity that the nonprofits had as a result of the storm, which is ironic to think about. But before Katrina hit, we had an existing nonprofit community, but we didn't have a lot of capacity within our nonprofits. There wasn't the amount of expertise and the reach, especially at the executive and managerial level. And then when the storm came in, it became that great equalizer, right? And then everybody wanted to help. So we had a lot of expertise that came in nationally from a lot of the larger national foundations, from the Kellogg to the Ford Foundation, to a number of nonprofits, both nationally and internationally. And that level of reach really gave the local nonprofits the knowledge and the capacity that they needed to deliver grassroots services. And I like to stress the grassroots because I think they was instrumental in the redevelopment of this city. We were able to organize in a form and fashion that never really existed before the storm. It gave the people in a very diverse multiplicity of people and demographic groups a voice that they never traditionally had, and the willingness and the drive to engage in a community development effort. And I think that was really the hallmark of what changed so much as a result of that level of capacity. And we see this especially in entrepreneurship. There's been a lot of research and data that has come out in New Orleans over the last 10 years since Katrina hit about New Orleans as the #1 startup city from Forbes magazine. New Orleans is a hotbed of tech startups. You name it, we've been branded as
I think they're in the top 5 in the country, right?
We are.
Tech startups.
We are. Yeah, it's just startup central. But a lot of that wasn't a result of top-down economics. It was a grassroots initiative. It was a way of saying, is there a way that we can use this groundswell of grassroots efforts and apply it to entrepreneurship so that we can actually use entrepreneurship as an economic development tool to bring back the city? And that's exactly what a number of groups did. And one group in particular, another nonprofit, was the Idea Village, that had this idea of, let's create the centralization of entrepreneurship and let's start celebrating it in all of its capacities, from those that are starting food and beverage business to tech business to a new brewery. Let's bring them all together and start teaching entrepreneurial type assistance. And that sort of mindset got inculcated within the local community. So entrepreneurship just didn't become something for businesses per se, but it was applied into management in the nonprofit world, in the government world, in a variety of these different sectors. So when we think about New Orleans as an entrepreneurial city, I think we really need to think about it beyond just the small business mindset. We are a community of entrepreneurs in a variety of endeavors that we pursue.
And that entrepreneurial spirit, that's the reason they call it a spirit, because it transcends beyond simply startups.
Absolutely. It's a can-do attitude that has lifted New Orleans, and not just New Orleans, and we saw this after the recent flooding in other parts of Louisiana. It lifts the entire spirit of the state, and I think that's how our state gets so well defined. It's because of this resilient culture that starts from places and points in time which are very dark and very stressful, but it's that resilient culture of that human spirit that champions in the end.